You are tuned into CrossTalk, featuring State Senator Mike Brady, as we have him here to talk about some of the things that he's working on. Senator, welcome back to the program.
How are you, Kevin?
I'm doing really good. I want to get into the meat and potatoes of it, but let's make sure during our conversation, or at least before we close it out, we have a chance to talk a little bit about a guy that I know that was prevalent during our growing up in the city of Brockton, marvelous Marvin Hagler, who passed away, and they're going to have a day for him. We'll talk about that, but that'll be at the close of our segment. I think I want to kind of really jump into, with your permission, the budget process. Here we go. It's moving down to the Senate. And I believe you have news as to the Senate budget as to when we're going to see that.
Yeah, we're taking it up, releasing it this week as we speak, and we'll be debating it in another week or so after that. So we have about a week to file amendments. I usually try to get similar amendments that I've put in the past in the budget, like to help people out with addictions and things for Plymouth County. Of course, the Monpont water area to help clean up cryonic bacteria in there. That's an important thing in Silver Lake as well, because a lot of towns between Pembroke and Brockton get their water, including the city of Brockton. Sure. So we want to make sure that drinking water is clean and efficient, and the people that use the Monpont pond for recreational use as well.
We should also make mention that even though the budget, the Senate version of the budget is being released this week, it's still going to be a little more than a week to 2 weeks before you actually will all get together to debate and add your own amendments.
That's correct. And, last year was a very difficult year. And by the way, my hat goes out to a lot of people that we know who suffered with the COVID-19 pandemic, and then people that we lost. And, my brother passed away a year ago, May 4th, and he was a great friend, and he was a selectman in Avon. And my hat goes out to all the accolades that people had sent. And, as you know, Kevin, you've all with the Blue Knights and all that, and they had a great send-off for him. And but a lot of other families have suffered. And, our healthcare workers, our first line workers, the supermarket workers, my heart goes out to all of the first responders. The day in and day in, they went to work during this pandemic. And, a lot of them suffered through COVID. I had a cousin in Rockland who was a nurse at South Shore, and she ended up getting COVID, but now she's fully vaccinated and she's been back to work doing fine.
So what are we looking at? Do we have numbers yet? I believe you're a member of the Senate Ways and Means. What are we looking at for numbers for the Senate budget? And is it similar to?
It starts off the governor presents a budget, as you know, then it goes to the House of Representatives, and then it goes to the Senate. And the budget initially proposed by the governor is a certain figure. In last year, because of the pandemic, we ended up doing monthly budgets because we didn't know what was going to happen. And thank God for our federal legislators that helped with federal money. I know Plymouth County got a lot of that funding and helped distribute money to the towns that I represent in Plymouth County. But right now, for the month of April, which is very good news, we're up $385 million above projected earmarks funding coming into the Commonwealth for the month of April alone. So I think we're in good news to get more money to our districts. And I know a lot of cities and towns are suffering. If not for the federal money and the state money, they'd be hurting even worse. But I know, some of the school funding, for instance, we weren't able to fully fund the Student Opportunity Act last year. So we're going to do that this year. And we narrowed it down to a 6-year plan rather than a 7-year plan. And we are looking to get increases in most of the communities that I represent, from Northeastern through Brockton all the way to Hanover down to Plimpton. And some towns are in tougher shapes than others. I know Whitman-Hanson suffers greatly, and they had a talk about if they don't do some overrides, they're looking at maybe laying off police officers. And we can't afford to lay off police officers in any community. So we're hoping to get as much money as possible. And the federal money, which is going to help out tremendously. Now, with the state funding, they're in their third phase of that COVID relief, but the federal funding is going to be another blessing coming into the Commonwealth. And the big thing is, Kevin, you and I have to balance our books. We cannot deficit spend. The state cannot deficit spend, but the federal government can. I am concerned about the federal deficit, but right now in this pandemic that we're still going through, we need that federal funding. And that's going to help us out tremendously. So we're waiting to see the figures on that totally. We have some figures handy for that, but we're waiting to see some more. But the other big thing, we have to still get people vaccinated. We're trying to get back to a somewhat normal way of living. I know the restaurants really suffered Small businesses suffered when they had to close last year. There was grant money given out to some of these businesses up to $25,000. And then that money ended. We're hoping to get more money to help these small businesses all across the Commonwealth. And, some businesses stayed open and paid their helping employees and others didn't, But the COVID vaccine thing, that's an important thing. I got my vaccination a week ago, my second vaccine. Luckily, I had no side effects, and I ended up getting COVID last November as well.
I would ask you this, and it's interesting that you bring up vaccinations. What's going on in regards to vaccination sites, especially locally?
Well, I'm glad you brought that up because people like to go to the local facilities. I mean, I even have a tough time going to Foxborough on a normal day when there's not even a Patriots game going on. Never mind an elderly person that they're lucky if they take the car once a week to their supermarket. So we are opening up more vaccination sites and getting more vaccination supplies down to the South Shore. So, for instance, at the Shaw Center in Brockton, they're going to be taking they were initially just doing Brockton residents or people that did work in Brockton. Now they're taking anybody who abuts Brockton. So Whitman, East Bridgewater, Hanson, all the Bridgewaters, Easton, Avon, Holbrook. Anybody can go there and get vaccinated now. And I encourage people that had a tough time. And there was a website to go on. It stands for Brockton Neighborhood Health Center.org. It's bnhc.org. And again, if people have trouble getting on these websites, because as you know, I'm not a young man. I have trouble sometimes with websites. They can always call my office and we're willing to help. That number is 617-722-1200 because we've helped a lot of people out that had tough time navigating the system. And I was able to call Sue Josh, and she's done a yeoman's work getting enough supplies. And I know like the towns, the Whitman Knights of Columbus were doing vaccines a while back. And then every other day, the administration in the corner office in Boston was changing their mind. So this is so important. We get the vaccines distributed locally.
I want to kind of go back to the budget and talk about any amendments. You teased it earlier, some of your amendments. I think one of them dealing with addiction. I think you said another one in regards to Silver Lake. I don't know if you want to take a moment to talk a little bit more about those, or if there are other amendments that you have on the docket for the budget debate.
Well, we're still working on some of the amendments we filed before. I got amendments in there for Hanover last year for the fire department. I got some other amendments. I'm meeting with a lot of different groups to see what their wishes are. As you know, the most important thing is why we have 2 ears and 1 mouth. We have to listen. And I'm meeting with different groups in my district or in the Commonwealth, or as well into the district in residence. Because, I mean, the addiction crisis is still going on. It's called a silent epidemic for an obvious reason. And especially now because of COVID, these people that go to the addiction sites have these regional meetings. They can't go in person anymore. Hopefully these sites will start to open up like Gosnell or High Point or whatever. But meeting over a phone call doesn't work, as you know. So we need to help get more money for that. We've done an okay job. We're addressing that more. That's an important issue. But, the issues like the Mont-Ponce watershed area, Silver Lake is important. Trying to get amendments. I've got amendments in the past for the town of Plimpton and Halifax as well. So I'm looking at all of that. Another thing that we're looking at is sports betting. And this is an important thing. It's not an avenue to raise taxes. Revenue is coming up. As I mentioned, projected revenues are high. The revenues that came in is much higher than the initial projections, $385 million more during the month of April alone, which is great news. So hopefully we can distribute more money into these cities and towns. But sports betting is another big issue I'm in support of, and a lot of my constituents are supportive of it. We filed amendments in the budget last year. It didn't fly, so we're going to be taking it up in the Economic Development Committee, which I'm the vice chairmanship of, and we had meetings on this. There's about maybe 6 or 7 bills filed to do with sports betting and a wide range of issues, whether you let the local businesses have sports betting, whether just the former racetracks have them or the casinos. I would like to see the local businesses that already have lottery, like Keno, they should have a piece of the pie, especially when they've suffered during this time. But this is all being worked out with the leadership. And whether we take it up in a budget amendment this week or we have a separate hearing, which we're going to have hearings on anyway, on sports betting. But I'll tell you, a lot of my constituents are waiting for this. Other states around us have it. the revenue that these states are getting in is amazing, and it creates jobs as well. So I think it's a win-win. Everybody's already doing it anyway, and it's a choice. So if you don't want to do sports betting, you don't have to. If you do want to, you can.
Yeah, and if you're just tuning into our program, we're speaking with State Senator Mike Brady. Just a quick note. I'm going to ask you as a sports fan, Senator, over under number of games before Mac Jones becomes starting quarterback. And we'll start it at, we'll say 8 games, over under.
That's a tough call. I say he's ready to go. I mean, what a great year he's had the past year in college. And I think it's a great choice for the Patriots. We have a lot of fans of him in the school he went to. I mean, one of the local places in Brockton, they're huge Alabama fans. They have a helmet of Alabama. Every time there's an Alabama, they bring it out. So I think it's going to be great news for the Patriots. I think it's a great move.
So if we can kind of move along here in our conversation, I've tried to do this with folks that I talk to on when I'm talking to senators or representatives. And I want to ask you, as to committees, do you have any committee assignments that you want to share with us or give any updates?
Well, I'm back being the chairman of the Public Service Committee. So we've got a lot of bills coming before that committee. We're doing some home rule petitions as we speak to get those out of the way. Then we're going to have hearings on the rest. As I mentioned, I'm the vice chairman of Economic Development. I'm also I'm a member of the Veterans Committee on Veterans Affairs, and we are in the process of funding to build a new Holyoke Soldier Home. When we heard the tragedies happened there, that building was outdated. So the initial proposal was $400 million to build a new facility, but the Senate put in an additional $200 million to look at veterans services in other parts of the Commonwealth, because not everybody wants to have their family members live at the Soldiers Home, and it's not easy for people down here to visit up there. So that's an important endeavor. We did a project labor agreement, and we'll see what happens. It's going through the conference committee as we speak, but I'm hoping to get that fully funded. Our veterans, as we all know, put their life on the line. We wouldn't have the open discussion that we can have today and open debates as we do as we're in session, if not for the veterans who fought and died for our country. And, I've been involved with a lot of the VFWs across the Commonwealth. The Brockton one, I've been to the Whitman one, some of the other ones. And we've got to support our veterans. And by the way, the VA hospital in Brockton has gone out beyond just their facility. They've gone to Whitman, to the VFW. They've gone to some churches. They are helping our veterans get vaccinated as we speak.
Last topic that I have on my list here to talk to you about is a special day that's being planned in the City of Champions. It's known as City of Champions, the two cornerstones, other than Brockton Boxer football and all the championships they won under Armand Colombo, is also, and Peter Colombo, don't want to forget Peter, is boxing. Rocky Marciano and Marvelous Marvin Hagler. The Marvelous one passed away recently. I believe that the governor named May 23rd Marvelous Marvin Hagler Day. Give me your thoughts, recollections on the champion, best, probably the greatest middleweight champion that we've known, at least in our lifetime, and this day.
Well, as you know, you and I, Kevin, grew up in this era in one of the best fights that I've ever seen. I was at Massachusetts Community College on one of them big screens with the Hagler-Hearns fight. I remember he had the banner war on his forehead, and it was probably the best 3-rounder I ever saw in my life. But we grew up in that era. We were young when Rocky died. That was in 1969. We have a statue in his honor up at the Marciano Stadium, but we're honoring Marvin Hagler on his birthday, May 23rd. He recently passed away, and I've met with his mother, and there's a committee formed to plan the event on his honor. And Mrs. Hagler is a sweetheart. She still lives in Ward 2 in the district. And there's a lot of guests coming. A lot of people in the boxing industry will be there. It's May 23rd. It's going to be from 1 p.m. Gates open, 2 p.m. The event starts. It's open to the public right at Marciano Stadium in Brockton off of Forest Avenue. And there'll be a lot of guest speakers. I ended one of our sessions in the Senate like we do when people pass away in honor of Marvin. I know the House members did the same thing. But this is a pretty nice event, and it's more to honor his family, too, because, as I mentioned, his mothers and his sisters and Robbie Sims, who was also a boxer, He's going to be there. And Tony Petronelli is going to be there. But there'll be other famous boxers showing up, and there might be some surprise boxers. I don't think the guy who supposedly was designated the winner out in Vegas will show up. But that's still a controversial fight, as we know. But there'll be other boxers that respected Marvin, and they might have lost against him, but they're going to show up. And I think that promoter there with the wild hairdo might even be showing up, Don King or whatever, but because he was at the Marciano statue unveilment. And so it's a event to honor him. May 23rd from 2 p.m. The gates open at 1 p.m. and it is open to the public, and it's free to the public.
Yeah, it's going to be fantastic. I think some of the information that I saw was you could see Bernard Hopkins, who is a middleweight champion himself. Stephen A. Smith, folks know him from ESPN fame. Boxing writer, I think, who's written for local Boston newspapers. Ron Borges, just to name a few, are on that particular guest list. As we wrap things up and close out our conversation here, anything you want to say to your constituents who might want to reach out to, or anything you just want to say in closing?
Well, thank you, Kevin. I'd just like to thank all my constituents for the continued support and keeping in contact with me. And another issue we had is unemployment issues that during the COVID pandemic, it's very difficult. So my office is available to help anybody out. Again, the number is 617-722-1200. Any ideas you think we should be doing? Because we work for the people, we represent the people, and not only in the district, but across the Commonwealth as well, because we passed statewide legislation. And again, this is Nurses Month too. And I want to honor all the nurses out there because, as I mentioned earlier, they were the frontline workers. And, the other day was National Nurses Day. This is National Nurses Month as we speak. So I want to thank all our healthcare workers, and especially the nurses who have been there through thick and thin through this pandemic.
Senator, I want to thank you, as always, for taking time out of your busy schedule to talk to the folks and have a conversation here for all to be able to glean information from.
Thank you, Kevin. And I look forward to coming back on again, probably after we get through the budget. As you know, the funding is one of the most important things to deliver the funding to the cities and towns that we all represent.
You have been tuned into CrossTalk with State Senator Mike Brady. That's all the program we have for you today. Until next time, have a good day.